The sky above New burned orange as thousands of metal pods fell through the atmosphere. They looked like shooting stars at first. Children pointed at them from their backyards. Farmers stopped their work to watch. But these were not shooting stars. They were death sentences. Governor stood in the command center of New Providence, the capital city. She watched the radar screens fill with red dots. Each dot was a drop pod. Each pod contained something terrible. "How many?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "We count over 4,000 pods, Governor," said Colonel. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. "They're landing across all 3 continents." Had been governor for 12 years. She had dealt with storms, droughts, and food shortages, but nothing like this, nothing close to this. The message from the Dominion had arrived 3 days ago. It was short and cruel. The alien empire had decided that humanity was a pest species. Humans had refused to give up their mining operations in the Orion Spur. They did not negotiate with pests. They simply removed them. "What's in those pods?" asked, though she already knew the answer. Colonel pulled up a file on the main screen. The image showed a creature from a nightmare. It stood on 8 legs like a spider, but it was the size of a small truck. Its body was covered in dark armor plates. Its head had no eyes that humans could see, but it had a mouth full of teeth that could bite through steel. The file called it a war beast, said. They use them to clear planets. According to our intelligence, these things have wiped out 17 species across the galaxy. No civilization has ever survived a deployment. Felt cold. She looked around the room at her staff. Some were crying, others were praying. A few were already making calls to their families. "How long until Terran military support arrives?" she asked. 9 months, answered. "The nearest fleet is in the system. They're mobilizing now, but the distance is too great." 9 months. Did the math in her head. The planet had 3 million colonists. If these creatures were as dangerous as the reports said, there would be no one left in 9 months. The first reports came in within the hour. A farming community called Green Valley was the first to go silent. Then the mining town of, then 3 more settlements in quick succession. The emergency channels filled with screaming, gunfire, and then nothing. Watched a video feed from a security camera in the town of Miller's Crossing. A family was running down a street. Behind them, emerged from between 2 buildings. It moved fast, much faster than something that big should move. It caught the father first, then the mother. The children made it another 20 meters before the creature caught them too. The whole thing took less than 30 seconds. She turned off the screen. She could not watch anymore. "The Colonial Defense Forces are engaging," Colonel reported. "Energy weapons are not working well. The armor on these things absorbs most of the energy. Kinetic weapons are better, but we don't have enough ammunition for a long fight." More reports came in. The defense forces were losing. For every they killed, 10 more appeared. The creatures seemed to come from everywhere. They hunted in packs. They were smart. They set traps. They learned. By nightfall, the situation was clear. Humanity was losing. The cities had erected emergency barriers, but they were already testing them. It was only a matter of time. Sat alone in her office. The window showed the city lights of New Providence. Somewhere out there, beyond the walls, monsters were hunting her people. She thought about her daughter, safe for now in the bunker beneath the government building. She thought about her late husband, who had died of illness 5 years ago. She was glad he did not have to see this. A knock came at the door. Colonel entered with several other officials. They looked defeated. "Governor," said, "we need to discuss evacuation options. If we can get some ships off the planet, we might save a few thousand people." "And abandon the rest?" asked. "There's no other choice. We can't fight these things. They knew what they were doing. These creatures are designed to exterminate entire species. We're not special. We're not different. We're just the next victims." Stood up, she walked to the window and looked out at her city. 3 million people were counting on her. 3 million people who had left Earth to build a new life. They had crossed the stars. They had tamed a wild planet. They had built homes, farms, and communities. And now some arrogant aliens had decided they should die. Something changed in his heart. The fear was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Something hot and stubborn and very, very human. "No," she said. "Governor." I said no. She turned to face them. "We are not running. We are not abandoning anyone." "With respect, Governor, that's not realistic. These creatures have." "I know what they've done," interrupted. "I know they've killed 17 species, but those species were not human." Colonel frowned. "What difference does that make?" Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Colonel, do you know why humans left Earth? It wasn't because our planet was peaceful. It wasn't because life was easy. Earth was a death world. Everything on that planet tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, even the weather. We survived it all. We didn't just survive. We conquered. We hunted our predators to extinction. We tamed wolves and made them our friends. We built civilizations in deserts and jungle and frozen wastelands." She walked to the table and placed her hands flat on its surface. "They think they dropped weapons on us. They're wrong. They dropped prey." The room was silent. Looked at her like she had lost her mind. Maybe she had, but madness and courage often looked the same. "What are you suggesting?" asked Dr. Helen Park, the chief science officer. "I'm suggesting we fight. Not just to survive, but to win. These creatures are animals, and humans have been hunting animals since we lived in caves. We have 9 months before help arrives. That's 9 months to learn everything about these beasts. 9 months to find their weaknesses. 9 months to remind the galaxy why our ancestors were the most dangerous things on Earth." She looked at each person in the room. Some still looked doubtful, but others were starting to understand. A spark was igniting in their eyes. "Send a message to every settlement," ordered. "Tell them help is not coming for 9 months. Tell them the creatures are dangerous. But also tell them this: we are humans. Our species was born in blood and fire. We have faced extinction before, and we are still here. These aliens made a mistake. They didn't send enough monsters." Colonel straightened his back. Something in his posture changed. He was a soldier again, not a defeated man. "What are your orders, Governor?" Looked out the window one more time. The night was dark, but somewhere in that darkness, humanity was fighting. And tomorrow they would fight smarter. "We learn," she said. "We adapt, we hunt, and we show the galaxy what happens when you corner a human." The war for New had begun, and humanity was not going to lose. High Commander stood on the observation deck of his warship, the Eternal Dominion. Below him, the blue and green planet called New turned slowly in the void. He watched with satisfaction. The cleansing was proceeding as expected. Was old, even by standards. He had served the Dominion for 300 years. He had ordered the extermination of 11 species during his career. That had never failed. They were the perfect weapon. Drop them on a planet, wait a few rotations, and the problem solved itself. "Status report," he commanded. His aide, a young officer named, checked his data pad. They have established territories across all major landmasses. Human population centers are being systematically targeted. Estimated time to complete extinction, 25 to 30 planetary rotations. Nodded, as expected. The humans are a primitive species. They barely have space travel. They will die like all the others. But was wrong. He did not know humans. He had not studied them properly. He saw a species without claws, without armor, without venom. He saw weakness. What he did not see was the most dangerous predator the galaxy had ever produced. On the surface of New, humanity was changing. The fear of the first days was transforming into something else, something older and more primal. Thomas was a farmer. His family had worked the land on New for 3 generations. He raised cattle and grew wheat. He was 62 years old and he had never been in a war. but he knew about survival. When the first appeared near his farm, Thomas did not run. He gathered his family, his farm hands, and his 3 livestock guardian dogs. He sent his wife into the storm cellar with enough food for a week. Then he prepared to defend his home. "They hunt like wolves," he told his sons. "I've watched them. They test the edges, they look for weakness, so we don't show them any." The family had hunting rifles, shotguns, and 200 years of frontier survival knowledge. They also had something they had never encountered before: determination born of love. The first attack came at sunset. 3 approached the farmhouse. Thomas and his eldest son fired from the windows. The bullets cracked against the creature's armor but did not penetrate. The beasts charged. "Fall back to position 2, Thomas shouted. The family retreated through the house to the barn. They followed, tearing through the wooden walls like paper. But the barn was a trap. Thomas had placed propane tanks around the interior. When the creatures entered, his youngest son triggered the detonation from outside. The explosion killed 2 of the beasts. The third was wounded and slow. The dogs finished it. But more came. Throughout the night the family fought. They used fire, explosives, tractors as weapons, and anything else they could find. When they ran out of bullets, they used crossbows. When the crossbows broke, they used axes and hammers. By dawn, 9 lay dead around the farm. Thomas had lost 1 son and 2 farmhands. He was wounded in 3 places, but he was alive. His family was alive. A neighbor with a working radio broadcast their story across the emergency network. Within hours, the farm stand became a symbol. If one farming family could kill 9 of these monsters, then maybe humanity had a chance. Across the planet, similar stories emerged. A retired military veteran in the northern mountains held off a pack for 18 hours using nothing but traps and a hunting bow. A group of teenage hunters tracked it for 2 days and killed it while it slept. A grandmother in the coastal city of Port Haven drove her truck into a beast at full speed, sacrificing herself to save a group of children. Humans were learning, they were adapting, and they were getting angry. Governor organized the resistance from the capital. She created communication networks between surviving settlements. She established supply lines. But most importantly, she found Dr. She had spent her career studying alien life forms. When the invasion began, she did what scientists do: she observed. While others ran from she studied them. And 1 week after the drop, she made a discovery that changed everything. "Their armor is calcium-based," she announced to the War Council. "It's similar to the shells of Earth crustaceans, but thicker and denser. Energy weapons don't work because the calcium absorbs and disperses the heat, but acid will eat right through it." Colonel leaned forward. "What kind of acid?" Smiled. "Agricultural acid. The kind farmers use to treat soil. Mix ammonium nitrate with certain compounds, and you get a substance that dissolves armor in seconds." Within days, the colony's agricultural facilities were producing weapons. Farmers who had spent their lives growing food were now creating acid bombs. Crop-dusting aircraft that once spread fertilizer were modified to spray death. The first field test happened near the town of Riverside. A pack of 12 had surrounded a survivor camp. The defenders were out of ammunition and preparing for a final stand. Then the aircraft came. The acid fell like rain. They screamed. Their armor bubbled and melted. Their flesh dissolved. In 3 minutes, 12 unstoppable war beasts became puddles of biological waste. Governor watched the video feed in the command center. Around her, officers cheered. For the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself to hope. But weapons were only part of the solution. Humanity needed to hunt, and hunting required organization. Authorized the formation of militia units across the planet. Volunteers were divided into hunting parties. Each party had a specific territory. They learned to track to predict their movements, to set ambushes. The hunters used every advantage. They built thermal decoys to attract the beasts into kill zones. They created sonic devices that mimicked mating calls. They trained dogs to follow the creature's scent. They shared information through the network, building a database of behavior. And they discovered something that surprised them. They were not as intelligent as they first appeared. The creatures were cunning, yes. They could solve simple problems, but they could not adapt to new threats. They were designed for extermination, not for war against an enemy that fought back. Humans, on the other hand, were born to adapt. It was their greatest gift. Where other species saw a fixed problem, humans saw a challenge. Where other species accepted defeat, humans got stubborn. High Commander received his first concerning report 6 weeks after the drop. The casualty figures were wrong. The human population should have declined by at least 40%. Instead, it had declined by only 15%. And the population, which should have been growing rapidly, had actually decreased. "This is an error," said. "Recheck the data." The data was rechecked. It was not an error. On the surface of new, humanity was not dying. Humanity was hunting, and they were very, very good at it. Thomas, the farmer who had survived the first night, became a local legend. He organized hunting parties across the agricultural regions. He taught other farmers his tactics. He refused to let his son's death be meaningless. "We've killed predators before," he told anyone who would listen. "We've killed lions and tigers and bears. We've killed wolves and sharks and crocodiles. These things are bigger, sure. They're meaner, but they're still just animals, and no animal has ever beaten humanity." They had made a terrible mistake. They had dropped monsters on a planet of monster killers, and they were about to learn why humans were the most feared species on their own world. The hunters were waking up. 8 weeks had passed since the fell from the sky. The monsters had expected easy prey. Instead, they found something far worse. They found humanity. In the mountains north of New Providence, a hunting party moved through the darkness. There were 12 of them, all volunteers. They wore night vision goggles and carried acid rifles. Their leader was a woman named Sarah, a former park ranger who had spent 20 years tracking wildlife in the wilderness. "Contact ahead," whispered her scout. "Pack of 6, they're feeding." Sarah raised her hand. The team stopped. Through her goggles, she could see the gathered around something large. She did not want to think about what they were eating. "Standard formation," she ordered. "Flanking teams in position. We hit them in 3 minutes." This was what humans did best. They planned. They coordinated. They worked together like parts of a machine. Every member of the team knew their role. Every movement was practiced. 3 minutes later, acid rounds tore through the pack. 4 died instantly. The other 2 tried to run. They did not get far. Hunting dogs brought them down, and the team finished the job. Sarah marked 6 more kills on her data pad. Her team had killed 43 in the past 2 weeks. Across the planet, similar teams were doing the same. The war beasts were dying. At the capital, Governor received daily reports. The numbers were incredible. In the first 2 weeks, humanity had lost nearly 500,000 people. It was a tragedy beyond words. But in the past 6 weeks, human casualties had dropped dramatically. Meanwhile, deaths were rising every day. "We've confirmed 18,000 enemy kills," Colonel reported. "That's more than 20% of the initial drop, and their reproduction rate has collapsed. Doctors' teams destroyed most of the nesting sites with aerial acid attacks." Nodded, she should have felt happy. Instead, she felt tired. 500,000 people were dead. 500,000 families destroyed. She would carry that weight forever. But she could not show weakness. Not now. Her people needed a leader. "Increase hunting operations," she ordered. "I want these things extinct before relief arrives. We're not waiting to be saved. We're going to save ourselves." The hunting operations expanded. What had begun as desperate survival became something organized and systematic. Humans tracked movements using satellite data. They predicted where the beasts would go and set traps. They created killing zones where the creatures could be ambushed. And then something strange happened, something that disturbed even the hunters. People started enjoying it. Noticed it first among the militia units. The fear was gone. In its place was excitement. Hunters bragged about their kills. They competed to see who could take down the most beasts. They gave the nicknames and tracked individual creatures across the wilderness. "We've got a big one in Sector 7, a hunter reported over the radio, calling it Big Red because of the markings on its shell, estimated to be one of the largest specimens on the planet. My team is requesting permission to pursue." Permission was granted. The hunt for Big Red lasted 4 days. It became a planetary event. People followed the updates on the network. When the beast was finally killed by a coordinated team of 30 hunters, celebrations erupted across New. The hunter who fired the killing shot, a 19-year-old named David Park, became an instant celebrity. He appeared on emergency broadcasts. Children asked for his autograph. Someone started selling shirts with his face on them. It was strange and disturbing, and very, very human. But no one captured the planet's attention like Sarah's 16-year-old daughter. Had grown up in the wilderness. Her mother had taught her to track animals before she could read. When the invasion began, wanted to join the hunting parties. Her mother refused, was too young, it was too dangerous. Did not listen. One night she slipped out of the refugee camp with a crossbow and a bag of acid grenades. She tracked a alpha, one of the larger specimens that led the hunting packs, for 3 days through the mountains. She watched its patterns. She learned its habits. And on the 3rd night when it slept, she struck. The crossbow bolt was tipped with concentrated acid. It punched through the creature's armor at the joint between head and body. The beast woke and thrashed, but the acid was already eating through its vital organs. Finished it with a 2nd bolt to the head. She dragged the creature's head back to camp as proof. Her mother screamed at her for an hour. Then she hugged her and cried. The story spread across the network. A 16-year-old girl had solo killed an alpha. The image of standing over her kill, crossbow in hand, became the most shared picture on the planet. Governor invited to the Capitol. The girl stood in the war room, uncomfortable with the attention, looked at her for a long moment. "That was incredibly dangerous," the governor said. "You could have been killed." "Yes, ma'am," replied. "It was also incredibly brave. You've inspired millions of people." Shifted her weight. "I just wanted to help. Those things killed my father in the 1st week. I couldn't just sit and wait." Understood she had lost people too. Everyone had. "Would you be willing to teach others? Your tracking skills could save lives." Nodded. Within a week she was training adult hunters twice her age. She taught them how to move silently through the forest. She taught them how to read tracks. She taught them patience. "They're big and strong," she told her students, "but they're also predictable. They follow patterns. They're not creative like us. That's their weakness." The training camps grew. Veterans taught combat tactics. Farmers taught survival skills. Scientists taught biology. Children learned to shoot before they learned algebra. Humanity was transforming. The soft colonists who had come to build farms were becoming something harder, something older. The hunting instinct, buried under centuries of civilization, was waking up. By the 10th week, the momentum had completely shifted. Near population centers dropped to near zero. The beasts were retreating to the wilderness, to the mountains and forests where they had once been predators. Now they were hiding. Governor gave a planetary address. Behind her hung dozens of skulls, trophies from the hunting parties. She looked into the camera with eyes that had seen too much death and too much courage. "Citizens of New," she said, "I have an announcement. As of today, we are no longer in survival mode. We are in eradication mode. They came here to exterminate us. They failed. Now we will exterminate them, not because we have to survive, but because no one threatens humanity and lives to tell about it. High Commander watched the broadcast from his ship. He did not understand the words, but his translation software rendered them perfectly. He stared at the human leader, at the skulls behind her, at the fire in her eyes. Something cold settled in his stomach. It was an emotion he had not felt in 200 years. Fear. He opened the ancient archives of the Dominion. He searched for information on the planet called Earth. What he found made the cold feeling worse. Humans had hunted their apex predators to extinction, not for food, not for survival, for sport. They had killed the largest land animals ever to exist. They had conquered every environment on their planet. They had even left their world and spread to the stars. And through all of it, through millions of years of evolution, one trait had remained constant. Humans never stopped being predators. Closed the archives. He looked at the planet below. Somewhere down there, his unbeatable war beasts were being hunted by creatures that had no claws, no armor, no venom. He finally understood his mistake. He had not dropped predators on prey. He had dropped prey on predators. And now it was too late to take it back. High Commander had not slept in 6 days. He sat alone in his private quarters, surrounded by data screens. Every screen showed information about humans. He was trying to understand how his perfect plan had failed so completely. The numbers were impossible. Of the 80,000 deployed on Nu, fewer than 12,000 remained. The beasts that had exterminated 17 species were being systematically destroyed by creatures that looked soft and weak and harmless. Had commanded the fleet for 3 centuries. He had never failed. Had never failed. Every planet, every species, every world that the Dominion had been cleansed. The war beasts were designed for one purpose: extinction. They were supposed to be perfect. He opened another file on the human. The planet was called Earth. It was a small world, mostly water, orbiting an ordinary star. Nothing about it seemed special. But the more read, the more his confidence crumbled. Earth was what the Dominion classified as a death world. The planet tried to kill its inhabitants constantly. The weather created massive storms that destroyed entire regions. The ground shook and split open. Mountains exploded with liquid fire. The water contained predators with hundreds of teeth. The land was filled with venomous creatures, disease-carrying insects, and large animals that could kill with a single blow. And humans had conquered all of it. They had conquered the predators by hunting them, not just killing them when threatened, but actively tracking them across vast distances. They built traps. They worked in groups. They learned the patterns of every creature and used that knowledge to destroy them. The files contained images that made stomach turn. Humans standing over the bodies of massive predators, smiling. Humans wearing the skins of animals they had killed. Humans mounting the heads of their prey on walls as decorations. They did not just kill to survive. They killed because something in their nature demanded it. But hunting was not the worst part. The worst part was what humans called war. For millions of years, humans had fought each other. They developed weapons of incredible destruction. They created poisons, explosives, and devices that could level entire cities. They fought over land, resources, beliefs, and sometimes for no reason at all. Their history was written in blood. One file caught attention. It described something called the Second World War, a conflict that happened on Earth over 400 years ago. In 6 years, humans had killed over 70 million of their own kind. They had dropped weapons that destroyed 2 cities in single flashes of light. They had built factories designed specifically for killing. And after that war, humanity had not stopped. They continued to develop more weapons, more ways to kill, more methods of destruction. When they finally reached the stars, they brought all of that knowledge with them. Understood now. The Dominion had looked at humans and seen a young species, only 3 centuries into space travel. They had seen soft bodies and short. They had seen prey. They had not seen what humans really were. Humans were not prey that had learned to fight. Humans were predators that had learned to farm. Every instinct, every behavior, every piece of their culture came from millions of years of hunting, fighting, and surviving against impossible odds. They were powerful, but they were simple. They knew only one way to hunt: chase, catch, kill. They could not adapt. They could not change tactics. They could not learn from their failures. Humans learned from everything. They turned every defeat into a lesson. They found weaknesses that no other species could see. They invented new tools, new methods, new strategies. They cooperated in ways that logic, with strangers working together as if they were family. And they had something else, something the files called spite. Spite was a human emotion that had no direct translation in the language. It meant suffering through pain and hardship for no logical reason, simply to deny victory to an enemy. A human would starve themselves rather than let an opponent take their food. A human would die rather than surrender. A human would keep fighting long after any rational being would give up. They did not understand spite. They could not. They were weapons, not warriors. When they faced resistance, they simply attacked harder. But humans did not break under pressure. Humans got angry, and angry humans were more dangerous than any war beast. Closed the files. He walked to the observation window and looked at Nu. The planet looked peaceful from orbit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Nothing suggested the horror happening on the surface. Down there, his were being hunted. Humans tracked them through forests and mountains. They set traps that dissolved armor. They attacked at night when the beasts rested. They gave no mercy because they had given no mercy. The latest reports showed that the remaining had retreated to the northern mountain range. They were clustering together for protection. It was instinct, safety in numbers. But it was exactly what the humans wanted. Governor had ordered a coordinated assault. Thousands of hunters were moving into the mountains. They carried acid weapons and explosives. They had dogs trained to track scent. They had aircraft ready to spray death from above. The final hunt had begun. Watched a live feed from one of the orbital sensors. He could see the human forces moving through the mountain passes like water flowing through cracks. They surrounded the positions. They cut off escape routes. They tightened the circle day by day. The beasts tried to fight back. They attacked human camps at night, but the humans were ready. They had learned every tactic. They knew when the beasts would attack, where they would come from, how they would move. The ambushes failed. The beasts died. On the 5th day of the mountain campaign, a pack tried to break through the human lines. 50 beasts charged a defensive position held by 200 hunters. It should have been a slaughter. They were stronger, faster, and more deadly in close combat. The pack reached the human lines and was destroyed in 6 minutes. Acid grenades melted their armor. Coordinated fire cut down the survivors. Dogs dragged the wounded to the ground. Human hunters finished them with blades. The video of the battle spread across the colony. Humans watched their defenders tear apart the monsters that had killed their families. They cheered. They cried. They felt something that had been missing since the invasion began. Hope turned off the feed. He could not watch anymore. He walked to his communication console and composed a message to the Dominion Council. The message was marked with the highest priority classification. It read, "To the Supreme Council of the Dominion, I am submitting my formal recommendation regarding the human species. The deployment has failed. Of 80,000 war beasts, fewer than 5,000 remain. Extinction is imminent, but it will not be our enemy who becomes extinct. I have studied the humans extensively. They are not like any species we have encountered. They do not surrender. They do not break. They adapt faster than any creature I have observed. They turn our weapons against us. They find weaknesses we did not know existed. Most concerning is their psychological response to threat. Other species freeze when faced with superior force. Humans become more dangerous. They have a concept called spite that allows them to endure suffering simply to deny us victory. This makes them nearly impossible to defeat through conventional means. I recommend immediate cessation of all hostilities against humanity. We must withdraw from their territories and establish a neutral zone. Any further aggression will only strengthen their resolve. They were our most powerful weapon. The humans have turned them into a joke. We dropped monsters on their world, and they hunted those monsters to extinction in months. I say this with no pleasure. We have made a terrible mistake. The humans are not prey. The humans are what happens when a prey species decides to become the predator. They are the most dangerous thing this galaxy has ever produced. May the Dominion be wise enough to learn from this failure. High Commander. He sent the message and sat back in his chair. He knew his career was over. He might face execution for his failure, but he did not care anymore. He only hoped the Council would listen. Down on the planet, the final were dying, and humanity was watching, celebrating, and remembering. They would not forget this invasion. They would not forget and someday, when they were strong enough, they would make sure the galaxy never forgot them either. 5 months after the first drop pods fell from the sky, Governor stood in a mountain valley surrounded by snow and pine trees. Behind her were 300 hunters, the best warriors humanity had produced during the long nightmare. In front of her, trapped against a cliff face, were the last 23 on Nu. The beasts looked different now. When they first arrived, they had been confident predators, apex killers designed to exterminate entire species. Now they were thin and wounded. Their armor was cracked and stained with acid burns. Their movements were slow and desperate. They had been hunted across a continent, and they had nowhere left to run. Looked at them without pity. These creatures had killed 500,000 of her people. They had destroyed families, communities, and dreams. They had made children orphans and turned peaceful towns into graveyards. Governor, Colonel said, standing beside her, the teams are in position. We can end this whenever you give the order. Nodded slowly. She thought about her daughter safe now in New Providence. She thought about her late husband who would have been proud. She thought about Thomas, the farmer who had shown the colony that humans could fight back. He was here today, missing 2 fingers from a bite but still standing. She thought about all the people who had died and all the people who had survived. They had earned this moment. Let's finish it, she said. The final battle lasted 7 minutes. Acid grenades rained down on the trapped beasts. Hunters fired from elevated positions. Dogs charged the wounded creatures. They tried to fight. They always tried to fight. But there were too many humans, too many weapons, too much coordinated fury. When it was over, 23 lay dead in the snow. The last monsters on Nu were gone. Walked through the battlefield. Bodies of the beasts steamed in the cold air, their flesh dissolving from the acid. She stopped beside the largest specimen, an alpha that had led this final pack. Its 8 legs were curled under its body. Its armor was melted and broken. It looked almost sad. She felt nothing. A hunter handed her a knife. It was tradition now. The leader of the final hunt took a trophy from the last kill, cut a piece of the alpha's armor from its shoulder. She would mount it in her office as a reminder. A reminder that humanity did not surrender, did not break, did not die quietly. It's over, said. Shook her head. No, it's just beginning. The news spread across Nu within hours. Church bells rang in towns that had been under siege for months. People danced in the streets. Strangers hugged each other and cried. The nightmare was finally over. Governor gave a planetary address that night. Behind her was not a wall of skulls this time, but a window showing the stars. Her voice was calm and strong. Citizens of Nu, today we killed the last on our world. 5 months ago, an alien empire tried to exterminate us. They dropped 80,000 war beasts on our planet and expected us to die. We did not die. We fought. We adapted. We hunted, and we won. This victory belongs to every person who refused to give up. It belongs to the farmers who turned their fields into. It belongs to the scientists who found our enemy's weakness. It belongs to the hunters who tracked these monsters through wilderness and storm. It belongs to the children who grew up too fast and the elders who fought longer than anyone expected. We have paid a terrible price. 500,000 of our friends and family are gone. We will mourn them forever, but we will also honor them by living, by rebuilding, by making new stronger than it was before. And to the Dominion I have only this to say: we remember. We will always remember. You tried to destroy us and you failed. Remember that failure. Remember what happens when you threaten humanity, because we will not forget, and we will not forgive. The speech was broadcast across all galactic communication channels. Every species with access to interstellar networks saw it. They saw the human leader. They saw the determination in her eyes. They saw the stars behind her, the same stars that humanity had conquered. And they were afraid. The response was immediate. Within days, 12 alien species sent diplomatic requests to the Terran Union, asking for non-aggression treaties. They had seen what happened on Nu. They had watched humans hunt the and kill the unkillable. They wanted no part of a war with that species. The Dominion Council met in emergency session. High Commander's message had shaken them deeply. For the first time in their history, a deployment had failed. Not just failed, but failed completely. The war beasts that had terrorized the galaxy were now classified as manageable fauna, with a note that said, dangerous to most species, vulnerable to humans. The Council made 3 decisions. First, High Commander was executed for his failure. Second, all forces were ordered to withdraw from human-adjacent space immediately. Third, the Dominion officially removed humanity from the pest species list and reclassified them as a major galactic power. They did not apologize. They never apologized. But they retreated, and for an empire that had never known defeat, that retreat was apology enough. 1 year later, Ambassador Al of the Consortium arrived at Earth for diplomatic negotiations. They were a peaceful species, traders and scientists who had always avoided conflict, but they had seen the new broadcasts. They wanted to understand humans better. Al met with the Terran diplomatic team in a conference room overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He was a tall creature with gray skin and large eyes. He seemed nervous, though he tried to hide it. I have studied your history, Al said. I have questions if you will permit them. The lead Terran diplomat, a woman named Admiral, nodded. Of course. How did you defeat the? Our scientists have analyzed the data. The beasts were larger, stronger, faster. Their armor was resistant to most weapons. They had natural advantages in every category. By all logical analysis, you should have been exterminated. Admiral smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not warm either. It was the smile of a predator who knew exactly what they were. You're asking the wrong question, she said. What is the right question? You should be asking why you thought we would lose. They have killed 17 species, yes. Do you know what those species had in common? Al thought for a moment. They were all technologically inferior to the Dominion. No, they were all species that had never faced real predators. They evolved on safe worlds. They developed intelligence without developing survival instincts. When they came, they did not know how to fight because they had never needed to fight. She leaned forward. Humanity is different. Ours was a death world. Everything on Earth tried to kill us. Predators hunted us. Diseases attacked us. The weather froze us and burned us and drowned us. We survived not because we were strong, but because we were stubborn. We refused to die, and when the predators came for us, we did not run. We hunted them back. She paused. Your Dominion dropped monsters on a world of monster hunters. Our ancestors killed mammoths with pointed sticks. Our grandparents landed on the moon with less computing power than a children's toy. We did not survive Earth by being gentle. We survived by being more dangerous than anything that tried to eat us." Al was quiet for a long moment. He looked out the window at the vast ocean, at the planet that had created such terrifying creatures. "I understand now," he said. "We will recommend to our government that a mutual defense pact be established with humanity, not because we believe you need our protection, but because we would rather have you as allies than as enemies." "A wise choice," Admiral said. When Al returned to his ship, he wrote a personal note to his government. It was added to the official diplomatic report and marked as essential reading for all leaders. "The humans are not like us. They are not like any species in this galaxy. They look weak, but they are not weak. They look gentle, but they are not gentle. They are a species of hunters wearing the mask of civilization. That mask comes off very quickly when they are threatened. Do not threaten the humans. Do not corner the humans. Do not underestimate the humans. They carry millions of years of predator evolution in their blood, and they are very, very good at killing things that try to kill them. And for the love of everything sacred in this universe, never, ever give them something to hunt." On Nu, the first annual day was celebrated with parades, festivals, and hunting competitions. Humans told stories of the invasion to their children. They mounted trophies on their walls. They built memorials to the dead and statues to the heroes. And in the mountains, in the valleys, in every corner of the planet, humanity looked up at the stars and smiled. They had been tested, they had survived, they had won. And the galaxy would never forget it.